one. My name is Taiye Tunkarimu, and I'm the acting head of communication, stakeholder management, and promotions at LSETF. That's the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. I'd like to appreciate the business owners who have joined us today for the masterclass from different parts of Lagos, Nigeria. And of course, I think some people are joining us from outside of Nigeria since it's a virtual event. I believe that it's important to mention here what we do at LSETF for the sake of those who are joining us for the very first time, so you can be familiar with what we do and also see how you can tap into the opportunities, not just into the creative sector, since we're discussing the creative sector today. Now, what do we do at LSETF? LSETF was established in 2016 with a mandate to prepare Lagos State residents and entrepreneurs and employment. LSETF was established in 2016 with a mandate to prepare Lagos residents and entrepreneurs for employment opportunities through the acquisition of skills to get better jobs. We also were created to tackle unemployment and also enable wealth creation in Lagos State. Our work with entrepreneurs resides on three major pillars: access to market, also access to affordable finance, and of course capacity building, which is why we're putting together this masterclass. For those who would like to know more about LSETF, you can go to www.lsetf.ng to learn more about LSETF, or you can also follow us on our social media platforms. Just type at LSETF and you will have all the information that you'd like to know about LSETF. And if you have questions or queries, you can always drop them in our DMs, and we would respond to that. So about today's masterclass, this masterclass session is one of our capacity building initiatives. It seeks to provide a deeper understanding into the business opportunities within the fashion industry. Our guest facilitator, of course, is the delectable Omoyemi Akerele, who is the founder and CEO of Lagos Fashion Week and Style House Files. Thank you, Omoyemi, for honoring our invitation. We can't thank you enough to facilitate this session. And this session will be more beneficial to aspiring and, of course, existing fashion entrepreneurs who want to grow and, of course, expand their business. As I was reading up about Omoyemi, I'm like, this is a big week that we have just brought here, and everybody had better get their pens and papers to take as much notes that they can, because it's not easy to get people like Omoyemi to come talk to us on a platform such as this. So I'll crave your indulgence as the fashion enthusiast. If you're already in the business or you're aspiring, please ensure that you take notes. Okay, welcome, Omoyemi. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Taiye. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm super happy to be here. I mean, what always makes me excited about working with Lagos State Employment Trust Fund is, because we sort of, have this, we have this crossover in terms of our verticals. We also, at Style House Files Lagos Fashion Week, we have a 5-prong approach, to the work we do, which is providing opportunities for access to markets, opportunities for discovering new talent and supporting them as best as we can. We have a showcase platform at Lagos, through Lagos Fashion Week, opportunities for capacity building and skills development. And of course, we have our advocacy platform, Fashion Business Series, so working with stakeholders on the scene like yourselves is always something that, we look forward to, so because we engage, we connect, and, I believe that when stakeholders come together, it makes it easier to strengthen our ecosystem. So I'm happy to be here. I hope everyone is also excited. It's not just going to be me talking. So I'm going to start with, like a mini, a short presentation just to set a bit of context, and then we go straight into it. Taiye, do you have access to that to share? I don't know if Taiye sent it to you. Okay, cool. Next one, please. So hi, everyone. I just wanted to talk us through a few things, because I realized that predominantly within the Nigerian ecosystem, fashion ecosystem, everybody thinks about fashion, and every now and then we forget the wider apparel and garment sector. Next one, please. We forget, that there's a bigger pot, and we all generally tend to focus on the fashion, and I think, Nigeria has the capacity to position itself as not just a creative capital, but a commercial one as well. Made in Nigeria is something where, that we should, we can build on. Made in Lagos, made in Aba, made in Abeokuta, made in, wherever, different parts of Lagos. Next one, please. So I thought it was, be very, very important to start on this premise that, we all have, everybody in this room who contributes to the work that we do. We have the potential, when we work together, the sector has the potential to hold its own as a textile and apparel capital that's both creative and commercial. Yes, we've established that, Nigeria is a creative bedrock for talents. That's undeniable. But at the same time, where the challenge we're faced with today is how do we convert all that creativity into commerce? In 2017, we created, or was it 2016, a campaign. Next step, please. We created a campaign called Connecting the Dots because we realized that it was important to highlight other people who are doing other things beyond designers, so people begin to understand that there's a wider conversation to be had beyond, what happens on the runway, what happens with clothes and garments. This is not really showing, but it's okay. I'll talk through it. So it's always very important that, when we think about the industry, we look at it from a value chain approach. And, even though today people call it the value, it's more like value system because they're trying to discourage us from looking at fashion from a linear approach and but that's conversation for another day. I won't confuse you. So value chain, the question we want to ask ourselves is, do we really have a value chain? Does it exist today? Because when we think about value chain, you think about how it starts, with sourcing the fabrics, from agriculture, from when the seeds are planted, the cotton seeds or hemp or linen, as the case might be, downright to the ginning process and all of that, all the way till it becomes fabric, and then from fabric, of course, then you come to the creative process, which is where most of the people in this room probably fall in, the creative process. That's where you have photographers, designers, models, makeup artists, hairstylists, graphic artists, illustrators, any and everyone who contributes to making the creative scene pop. But beyond that, of course, we have to go into the garment making. How do you make the garment? Which takes you back to the textiles, the textile suppliers. And within that ecosystem alone, you have, technology, people who work with technology, experts who work to ensure that the fabrics, they're what it is. I'm wearing something from This Is Us, which is sourced from cotton that's grown in Nigeria, so you thinking about all the people within that process, then it goes to the factories who actually do manufacture. So, and that's also like a whole ecosystem employing hundreds and thousands and millions of people, so it's important that, when we talk about the industry, we have we should think beyond the sector, but have an industry an industrial approach to thinking about what we want to do and how we want to approach it. But when you look at the other picture, I've called it the 1%. The creative industry really is the 1. And that's something that a lot of us do not realize, that most of the activities that's happening within the Nigerian and ultimately the African fashion industry today is all 1%. So ask yourself, how do we, imagine the number of people, activities that's happening, and that's just 1%. How do we solve, the 99%? How do we ensure that, we all the roles that we need to fill to ensure that the other part of this equation is not missing? How do we invest in it? Sadly, most of stakeholders that we work with also come, when they come into the to the sector to try to support. They also focus on the 1%. We're thinking about the banks, everybody's focusing on creativity, everyone is thinking about, but there's infrastructure to develop, there's, there are factories to build, there's technology to invest in, education, and so much more to support this creativity. There's 1%. Please, can we go to the next slide quickly? So it's very important that, when we think about the work that we do, the role that we play, we should always think about it within the wider context of the industry. How do we contribute to building an industry, to creating an industry that, where everything and everyone is interwoven, interconnected, to be able to drive value? Because currently, next slide, please, because the only way we can drive value and productivity for all the fashion that you see on the catwalk like this is if there's a functioning industry. And with the functioning industry, it means that we can create hundreds and thousands and millions of jobs for people. That's where the opportunities lie, not necessarily not only because they're going to come for me, come after my throat. So I'm not saying don't work in the creative sector. I'm just saying that more people need to diversify their thinking process to think beyond creativity. It's saturated. Next slide, please. So currently, most of the work we do is around marketing or across the runway, photographers, models, stylists, journalists, bloggers, buyers, publicists. It's just a vicious cycle over and over again. So everybody's repeating the same thing next, and we wonder and keep asking ourselves why things are so, why everything is stagnant. But if you take a look at this factory, you can barely see the heads of the people working there, and imagine the people who have also worked to producing either the textiles, the machines that you see that's being used in this factory, the technology that's being utilized to bring this to life daily. There's just so much. The opportunities are endless, and that's what I want to use as the foundation for our conversation today. Next one, please. Retail in Nigeria is largely informal. If we think about the population of Nigeria and think about how many stores that we do not have enough formal retail structure to support creative talents that exist today. That's a huge opportunity that's still missing. Most of our retail structure is largely held through informal platforms, informal avenues. Next slide, please. And I'm not saying that, thankfully, we have technology. Thankfully, we have e-commerce. Thankfully, we have social selling across platforms, Instagram, and all of that. But ultimately, we also have to think, how do we create a formal structure and, an enabling environment for retail to thrive, within Nigeria and beyond. So in conclusion, everything is still evolving. Nothing's really happening as such on the scale that we want it to. And it won't until we all start having that industrial approach. How do we solve the 99% that's missing? Because currently we're working at a 1% capacity. So yes, there's an increase in demand for fashion that's designed, sourced, and produced in Nigeria, increase in number of apparel manufacturers, but I call them workshop owners. We're one of them, so it's okay, I can take that. Yes, there's an awareness of international brands who come into Nigeria daily, who are selling. MAC just launched a lipstick, that's a big deal. Using Tiwa Savage, that's a really big deal, for Nigeria. So yes, we have that, we have the footprint, we have the eyes on us, but how do we strengthen this 99%? So there's an emerging retail environment, so many fashion events happening on the daily. So there's signs of growth, and activity, increase in number of high street brands, and when I say high street brands, I'm referring to ready to wear brands. There's so many that we cannot count. They exist, but I keep going back. How do we think about supporting them beyond creativity, marketing, and all these other things? Next slide, please. So what are the growth and opportunities that exist? Yes, it's endless. If we think, I've talked about Nigeria's population, it's huge. But when we talk about population, oftentimes we think that's a lot of people. But if we also think about the fact that how many people can afford fashion at a particular price point, then, the numbers start to dwindle. So yes, the demand for Nigerian fashion has surpassed the supply capacity within the industry, which brings us back to the 1% versus 99% approach. So yes, a lot of people want it, but it's not as accessible. Why? there's no industry. More people need to focus about that. If you're thinking about starting a business, maybe you need to look into 99%. So even though we have retail stores dotted across the country, they create garments on the daily. You have the rough and tumbles, gray velvet, but it's still not enough. We need more. So yes, the one thing I and at Sal Housewives that we've done since day one is it can be a source of job creation, but we have to ask ourselves, what kind of jobs do we want to create, and, we have to be mindful about that. It takes a lot of mindfulness to be able to think about it and work towards it strategically. So yes, even though it has a capacity to generate substantial wealth and contributes to growth of the next slide, please, contributes to growth of the Nigerian economy, at the end of the day, we still have to create that. We have to see what we have to we have to create the future that we hope to see. I'm going to go through this quickly, challenges. Everybody in the room, what the challenges are. Let's not talk about it. That's draining. Next slide, please. So way forward, what should we be thinking about? I'm always about, yes, challenges exist. So what are the solutions? What should we do? How do we revive the Nigerian textile sector? Increase recognition for brands, non-stop capacity building and skills acquisition. Thank you, LSETF, because you are so invested in this. And, we need more and more people like that. I will add to that, we need more formalized institutions of learning. Education has become so informal in Nigeria as well. Everybody has, and we probably are guilty of that. Everyone has set up, a workshop style or market, and everybody's teaching people all sorts of things. We don't have that centralized approach to education where it's formal, where there's a central curriculum, awarding body, awarding agency. Everybody just opens a school and no one's regulating it and charging people all types of money. That's conversation for another day. So the way forward is we need to increase demand for fashion apparel. There has to be mapping of the sector. I know it's been done before by maybe British Council, but it has to be done again because I'm not sure how conclusive and how that was. We need to have conversations about redefining access to finance, grants, loans, etc., provide infrastructure, invest in manufacturing, existence of a unified body that people can identify with, support from the private and public sector, and begin to tell our story. Next slide, please. I want us to go straight into, but that, it really does exist. It really does exist. We can redefine what the value chain means to us. We don't have to follow the global approach. We can create ours, but it has to be functional. It has to work. It has to connect the dots. It has to create more jobs beyond the 1% so that the 1% can grow and survive. So creating, we've talked about job, I believe that, we need to build clusters across the country for supporting creatives to be able to connect and learn and engage, invest in more marketing, create a paradigm shift, why people should buy Nigerian, to understand, even if and when it's slightly more expensive, why they're making that buying decision, e-commerce options, bricks and mortar stores, multi-brand stores, tax incentives, we need that from the government. And, together we can position the Nigerian textile and apparel sector as a stakeholder in the Nigerian economy. So I think it's a wrap from me. So after setting that foundation, I want to leave you with this. In a recent 100 Most Valuable African Brands survey, African brands, were only about 33.7. Some people might say that's a lot. And international brands were about 66.3. South African brands, however, represent 71% of the share. Nigerian brands, only 27%. So yes, we're present, but, I believe that considering we make a lot of noise, sorry, we can work towards increasing our market share, creating brands and, building sustainable fashion brands. Next, so while we ponder and deliberate, there's a mixture of excitement, but, apprehension as well, but we need to plan, we need to work hard, make decisions and implement. Thank you very much. So, Taiye.
Thank you so much, Omoyemi. That was a lot within the period of time, and I was taking notes because I'm also learning things from you as well. That was a whole lot, even though you said it was just a brief presentation, but I got so much from it. What's my takeaway is the fact that we have 99% against 1. That's a huge number. 99% against one. And I mean, we hear people are in the fashion industry, the creative industry, and we're still having these numbers, then it means that we have a lot of work to do. Considering you also mentioned that Nigeria has just 27%, and in our minds, we think that we are there already, but I'm happy that you've opened our eyes to this, and I'm sure those who are listening would see the opportunities in the sector, in the creative sector, that it can also tap into. But before we go, we'd like to play a very little video for you, Omoyemi, and of course, those that are joining us before we continue the conversation. Let's just do that now. Okay, while we wait for that, I will just quickly just ask you a few questions before we do that. I just wanted us to have the video come up before we go into the conversation. So you mentioned the 99%, and I'm wondering, how do we get people to invest in the 99%? So I think we need to start having more conversations around the value chain so people can really, really understand a need, for investment in that sector. So I'm wondering, how do we create that opportunity for the functioning industry?
Okay, so I think it starts with everyone in this room, because most people, when people want to work in the industry, a lot of people naturally gravitate towards creating a brand. They want to be a designer, or they want to start their own fashion label, or they want to sell fabrics, or everything is still within within that creative bubble. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to knock anyone on the head if that's their passion. I'm just saying that it's time to encourage more people to think beyond that. That for people to get creative, you need a whole process to be able to bring that creativity to life. And that there are other ways that you can invest in the fashion industry, which could be through technology to support it, which could be through setting up retail infrastructure, setting up a funding system, setting up a textile manufacturing company, or working in a textile manufacturing company and lending your service to support that, or working in an apparel or garment manufacturing, everything else beyond photography, makeup, hair, models, publicists, journalists, all the creative sector thing. And I think it starts with us being deliberate. We have to be deliberate about it. I don't really think, it takes that person it takes that mindfulness to realize that, okay, wait, this place is saturated and I want to invest in it. So what else can I do, to learn about it? And then maybe to, of course, you might have to work with experts who understand that sector a bit more, to invite them into the room if we need to bring what do you call it? If we need to bring the experts who have a better understanding, then let's invest in that. But by all means, we shouldn't all go back to our comfort zone and what we know, which is start a label, create a label, work for a designer. Because if we keep going like that, it's everything. I don't want to use negative words, but this stagnant place we're in is because everybody's doing the same thing, and we don't have people who are working in that way to pull the 1%, pull the 1% up.
Thank you very much for that response, Omoyemi. So I'm wondering, because you mentioned a whole lot in terms of the value chain, all the processes, and even getting these fabrics before they even are made to be ready to wear. I mean, are you saying, or can we say that the environment has created that opportunity for people to be able to tap into that? Because you mentioned how, the fabrics are gotten from, agriculture, the processes. So maybe if we create like courses or expand and let people know these are the areas, you can be the ones working in trying to get the fabric from agriculture, from this process, we're moving to the next process. So people can actually see the opportunities in that 99%. Because I feel like What people are seeing more are the things you just mentioned, the makeup, the hair, the shoes and the ready to wear. But are we really telling the stories for this 99% so people can actually begin to see the opportunities in that function industry?
I totally agree with you. We have a lot more work to do in that regard. We've been mindful and, about bringing them into the conversation, like the Textile Manufacturing Association. There's even an association for cotton farmers, in Nigeria, engaging them. But there's only so much talking can do, because if you speak to them, they start to talk to you about quality of seeds, about dwindling number of cotton farmers, because it's not, the productivity levels have reduced, that's a completely different thing on its own. But if stakeholders that can support them, maybe the public sector, they're actively involved and engaged with supporting them, then why not? So I believe that, that's the starting point. Definitely should be, okay, how do we support these creatives? Fabric is something, think about when COVID happened and a lot of people who probably used to source fabrics from outside Nigeria, they couldn't do that. We all had to buy locally. If you look around, there's been an increase in number of, it's not a mistake that a lot of people are now using Adire. Foreign exchange is ridiculous. Nobody wants to, you don't want to keep trading at a loss, because if you're benchmarking your product to the dollar or naira, you're not in control of that. If you're not in control of your price point, you cannot really survive as a brand, So everyone is looking within Nigeria to source their fabrics. So if the textile industry is not strong enough to support that process, then what are we doing? Why are we all here? Why are we all having these conversations? So we have to, bring those people into the room, bring them into the conversation. And when I say bring them, I mean stakeholders maybe at your level, or, the level of public sector who can invest in them or support them. I know they have their own challenges and problems on its own, and talking about it now will probably, it's probably going to drag, but they just have to be a part of the conversation, And that's how, with manufacturing, with garment manufacturing, that's how we started. We had a whole fashion business series around it for like 1 or 2 seasons, brought people in to inspire, to talk, to break it down. And, that became forefront on the minds of people. So I feel like, people are more open to that idea. Stakeholders are more open to supporting. We have to do the same with each part of the value chain, so that it's given the attention that it needs, it gets the support that it needs, and I keep referring to the stakeholders who can really make this happen, either funding institutions or the banks, to be able to take a closer look at supporting that as well. If you keep supporting and giving loans to creatives, you are setting them up to fail. You can quote me anywhere. You are setting them up to fail, because if you give them a loan and the enabling environment is not right to support them, it's only a matter of time before they won't be able to make up meet their payments, because things are not working. But if you also focus or concentrate on supporting ancillary sectors that will help them thrive, then it makes more sense, so that you don't keep setting them up to fail. So yeah, okay.
Thank you, Omoyemi. I'm really writing different things that, of course, I'll also share with people. But before we continue conversation, I'd like us to play the video. So that will take us to our next round of questions, rather. Oh, technology, please don't fail us. We have to show Omoyemi this video. And of course, our participants have joined us. Okay, I think I'll just go on when we're okay. Is the video on now?
No.
I guess we'll go right into it. Once we're able to do that, we'll just take a pause and then we will do that. So, Omoyemi, oh, I can see some comments in the chat box. Facts, well said, Omoyemi. Thank you. Keep them coming. And also, you can drop your questions in the chat box as we go along, and then we will also ask Omoyemi about that. Now, I know you're the CEO and the face behind the Lagos Fashion Week. I've always heard about the Lagos Fashion Week. And could you tell us a bit more about Lagos Fashion Week and, of course, Style House File and what inspired you to establish that?
Oh, okay. Style House Files was launched in 2009. And at the time, you know, we had worked in the industry for how many years? About 7 years or 8 years, and realized that there was need to set up a vehicle that would act as a catalyst within our fashion ecosystem and, you know, ultimately the textile and apparel industry, because I realized that a lot of what was going on was largely, or to a large extent, was more entertainment than, you know, focusing on the business of fashion. So there was need for a platform that would provide opportunities, you know, that would bring stakeholders and creators and, you know, creatives together. But beyond bringing them together would be to explore conversations around ensuring that fashion can contribute to Nigeria's economy, to ensure that, you know, people can especially designers at the time, because, you know, there was a lot of activity going on within the sector, but it seemed like there was no traction because it was ultimately about branding or entertainment, or, you know, it seemed like people came to watch a show and that was it. So Star House Files, you know, was set up with that mission to explore how to create opportunities for access to market, access to capacity building, skills development, you know, access to discovering talent, showcasing talents, and provide a platform that could create advocacy, you know, and to speak up about things that could support any of these things that I've just mentioned. And we've gone ahead to do just that. You know, so by showcasing, we created Lagos Fashion Week to be able to do showcases for capacity building, skills development. You know, we have SHF trains. We also have sessions through our talent discovery platforms, Fashion Focus, and now Green Access, you know, provide opportunities for skills exchange, for then knowledge exchange. Through that, we have, and through SHF Trains, which is our platform for providing skills for employability. So we sort of have different platforms that's been set up or created to provide different opportunities, you know, with our access to market initiatives. You know, we have Lagos Fashion Week showrooms or Lagos Fashion Week presents, and we do this in markets in partnership with African brands like maybe Akerele, Industry Africa. We do it as well, you know, through trade shows across the world, New York, London, Milan, Paris, you know, and with the focus of trying to get as many designers as we can, you know, into stores. So yeah, so that's what we do. That's our mandate at Style House Files. We're hoping to launch, you know, something else before the end of the year that would sort of bring everyone together under one roof. Hoping that comes to life. Yeah, so that's us in a nutshell.
Great work there. I think the video is, this video doesn't want to play, but it will play. Yeah. So I'd like to ask, do you think the Nigerian fashion industry is more embraced by Nigerians or Nigerians in the diaspora?
I actually think, you know, Nigerians have evolved significantly to buying and wearing Nigerian. when Style House Files was launched, we realized that this wasn't the case. We actually launched a campaign called Buy Nigerian. It was a campaign that we deliberately went out of our way. Then Twitter was the Twitter was the active social media, at the time. And we launched Buy Nigerian then, created videos to encourage, by that designers, designers, retail store owners, urged people to buy Nigerian, to wear Nigerian. But I feel fast forward 13, 14 years, I think people are buying Nigerian. I think people are wearing Nigerian. I actually think that the demand for fashion that's made in Nigeria cannot, the supply cannot currently meet the demand for it, which is also something that we need to think about. How do we solve that? So yes, however, I think there has to be a paradigm shift when it comes to pricing. I feel that sometimes people don't value it as much as they should, and I think that's where we need to create a paradigm shift so that people do understand why they're paying X amount for this if it's cheaper than your average clothes that's come through China or anywhere else. Okay.
The video is on now.
Oh wow, this is a lot. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure we can share this with you after the presentation. Yeah, so we just wanted to do something different rather than just reading your profile. And we thought to do something creative since we're discussing tapping the opportunities in the business and tapping opportunities in the creative sector. So I'll just move right to the next question now. Do you think that the female fashion industry is more lucrative than the male one? And or do you think if I'm an aspiring creative person, I should go into both?
I find that women shop more than men. I believe generally. So I'd love to see data to back this up, that indeed, women's wear is more lucrative than men's wear. However, when men shop, they buy, they'll buy a lot. So it's quite an interesting one. I wish I had data to back this up. It would be great to see and compare what the figures are. But I think I'm going to go with women's wear first over men's wear. in terms of what's more lucrative. Yes.
Yeah, but you find out that the men's were also quite expensive, and somebody would have said, "Oh, if I can sell one outfit for a male, I would sell about 5 of it to a female." What do you think?
Say that again.
So you find out that a lot of the men's were even more expensive than the female wear. So if I'm an aspiring creative that wants to go into fashion, I'm just trying to play the devil's advocate here. Would say if I can sell one outfit for XYZ amount, I would only have to sell like 5 of it to make that money for what I'll sell for a male. So I'm thinking, wouldn't I rather go for the male one if I'm trying
But
to?
then how often do men shop? So he buys the 1 million this month. Is it back? Women buy and they buy for different parts of their lives. Men, what are they buying? It's either it's either a suit or the shirt. I still feel that purchase, right? Even though in terms of money, it's probably going to be more in value, right? But I don't think they make buying decisions as often as women do. And it's the buying decisions that's going to, help determine what's more lucrative than even if the clothes are sold at 200,000, because it means the person can, if someone who has a 1 million buying capacity can buy 5 at once. Do you understand what I mean? But the guy just buys one and comes back in 3 months. Hello. So what do you do in between that? So I think it would be great to see data. It would be great to speak to a brand who sells both men's wear and women's wear, and actually compare. So the person can share within their books that, well, I sell only 4 menswear a month, but at the end of the month, I make more money from before I've sold than the 100 pieces of women's wear I've sold. So it would be great to actually see the data on that.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for that. I see in the chat box people saying, "Men, come and defend yourself." Hopefully, they will defend themselves on that. Now, what are the skills you require to become a fashion entrepreneur? Based off of what you just said, considering my head, the 99% still keeps ringing in my head. So, what do you think are the skills required for entrepreneurs who can actually tap into this 99% opportunity?
So the skills, I think, to be a fashion entrepreneur, so I'm going to narrow that down. When you say fashion entrepreneur, to me, I automatically think you're either referring to photographer, makeup artist, fashion designer, model, any of the people in that box, So what do you need? The first thing, you need to have an interest in what you want to do. You need to be interested in it. There's got to be purpose to that. What is the purpose for you wanting to do that? What is the bigger, it has to start with a question. What are you trying to solve? What problem are you trying to solve? It can't just be, oh, I woke up in the morning and I just want to do this. What gap in the market are you trying to solve? So if you start from that angle, then it becomes a little bit easier, so then you back all of that up with research, research skills. Let me do research. How does that fit into who I am, what I'm trying to do? How am I able to fund it? How much money is it, can be made? So you do all that research to be able to make an informed decision. And then, of course, you have to have passion. I think oftentimes people start with passion and they leave out purpose. They leave out, they don't do their research and they just jump in, So that's why I've sort of put it the other way around. Start with your purpose or mission, so to speak. Then do your research. Of course, make sure it's something you're super passionate about. Be knowledgeable about it. If you don't have the knowledge, invest in people, bring partners who have knowledge in it, and then, of course, every other thing. How do you fund it? How do you, sustain it? All those other things then come into play.
Yeah, I quite agree with you on research, because I feel like a lot of people just go into this business without, any business they're going into without doing like the due diligence to research about the sector or the business they're going into so they can have detailed information. I think for us at LSETF is the reason why we're creating like a business entry guide. And of course, if you're here, you can go and download the business entry guide for the fashion sector on our website. So you can also get more information. There's a lot of work that's been put into that. So, I mean, it will guide you as to giving you insight on how to get into that industry. Thank you very, very much. I also like the fact that you talked about knowledge, and also that even if you have the knowledge, you don't have the money, there'll be people who have the money that can invest in your knowledge and also make it your dream come through for you. And I totally agree with you in terms of collaboration. So we really need people to collaborate and support people like Omoyemi, who is preaching the gospel of, the creative industry for it to grow. And that takes me to my next question. So what are the growth opportunities in the industry?
So, yeah, I think it's part of the things that, we discussed. Nigeria's population is how many million? 190 to 200 million people. That's a lot of, I always use this analogy. Imagine if, as a creative, you're catering to 1% of that population. Let's do the math, So think about, that in itself should be a motivating factor for you every night. Like, how do I even 1% of that population? 1% of 200 is what? How many million? Let's break it down. 0.5% as a business owner. If you're like, let me target even 0.25. Let's do the math. If your business caters to that, so I'm mindful of the fact that within the population, of course, there are different demographics, there are different earning potential, and you have to tailor make your products to suit that, but that's why I'm even saying, even if you're targeting 0.25%, 0.1 of that population. So opportunities exist, and it's no joke or coincidence that people keep hopping on a plane to come to Nigeria. Of course, we don't have the favorable environment to support investment in Nigeria, clearly, with all our forex issues. But the point is, there's signs of growth, there are opportunities there. We are the opportunity, and so that's one thing. And of course, we've also talked about the fact that more people are buying Nigerian anyways, so if there's an appetite for consuming made in Nigeria, that's something that we need to figure out. That's something we need to, be able to cater to and cater for, and so much more.
Thank you very much. I hope our participants are taking notes.
1 second, please. 1 second. Give me a sec.
All right. While we wait for Miami to come back, you can drop your questions in the chat box, reading through so I can share with her when she comes back. Let's see. Thank you, Victory Bawo. You said you love the conversation. Okay.
Hi, I apologize for that.
It's okay. So I was just reading the comments in the chat box. Everyone's applauding you in the chat box. And so we'll move on to the next question before I start taking questions from our participants. So what do you think are the regulatory requirements for people who want to get into the business? Sorry, you're muted. Okay.
You said regulatory requirements?
Yes, to get into the fashion sector.
Oof, that question, the barrier for entry is super low. That in itself is a major advantage, but it's also a disadvantage. and it's something that we need to look into. Standard Organization of Nigeria, they're looking into, trying to do quite a bit of that, to ensure that, especially when it comes to manufacturing, that factories meet the requirement and, are able to produce in a standardized way. So they encourage manufacturers to apply and to be members of SON. However, when it comes to the fashion industry itself, I find that, we have to do a bit more work because there's so many silos, there's so many organizations and agencies, and, we have to know who or what the regulating body is. So it's good and then it's not good. It's good because, you can wake up and start your business and, you can get by. It's not good because anything and everything goes. And that's not really very good for consumers out there because nothing and no one's regulating anything.
So that leads me to a follow-up question on that. So do you think that we're saying enough about all of these challenges, especially to the regulatory bodies? I feel like, are we talking enough about it?
Sorry, we're definitely not talking enough about it, but there are groups that, like, especially textile manufacturers. And I think about 2 years ago, it became really urgent. There was a sense of urgency around it because people had to supply PPE equipment, outside Nigeria. And, so there was, a lot of people had to get, if you wanted to be accredited, you wanted to be an accredited factory that can, supply certain things, you needed to apply and do things a certain way. And I think the same thing has to happen for there to be some semblance of accountability within the wider fashion, within especially creatives who produce all of these things. Think about, if once you start to export in particular, the sort of fabrics you use, they ask you, what's your fabric composition? Where is it made from? You have to answer all of those questions. So if we ensure that we don't get to that stage before we begin to analyze what the brands do and how they, there's also another group now, they're called, what are they called? They reached out to do some work, they sort of have to look at your, in terms of promoting sustainability, they have to look at your fabrics, everything has to comply with, I'm going to look for details and send it to you. Everything has to comply with certain rules and certain standards. If not, you can't get that, you can't get accredited, you can't be accredited with them. And increasingly, especially Nigerian brands and African brands who are flying on the radar or flying on the arms of ethical fashion, if you don't have that label or that sticker, you're not going to be able to keep saying that you're an ethical brand or you're, a sustainable brand. So, but we need to create within the sector, there needs to be a platform that we use that's sort of like that has the overarching sort of rules and regulations that companies must adhere to for them to be able to say that, this is who I am, I produce in certain quantities, I deliver, because especially the schools one, that's giving me, I know NAPTIP, is that what they're called? I know that they, a lot of people are trying to go to them to get accredited, but beyond this, there's got to be a wider regulating body to prevent, because these schools are not cheap. Sometimes I hear that they charge people 300,000 to come and learn how to be a fashion designer. What is in the curriculum? What certificates do you get at the end of it? So those things, they're things that we really need to be careful of. And I even say to my people in the factory when we do all this training, but ours is even for free. But people really charge young and suspecting youth across Nigeria loads of money to train with them. So what value are we placing on this? So that's why this is a wider clarion call for the government to invest in our formal education system, to ensure that we create either universities or universities that already exist, for creatives. They're up to date in terms of curriculum, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of everything, so how do we all lobby, for this to exist? I personally, when I see all of these adverts telling people to pay to come, and I don't know, sorry, maybe I'm shaking some tables. I'm going to get slagged off for this, but yeah, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I think it's also very important that we also put this information out there. So aside from shaking tables, I think it's very, very crucial if we want to get to the place that we desire to be. Which leads me to another question of, do we really have the right people in the rooms? Because if we do, then we would be taking like little steps to get to where we want to get to. Because sometimes you find out that even people in the regulatory offices probably have no idea what the challenges are, what the issues are, So how do we get into those places? Like they say, if we keep sitting there and saying government is not doing that, but what are we doing? Are we also making moves to set people to change those bodies, to get into those regulatory bodies? I know that you were an ambassador for Zero Oil for Nigeria. And I know you've also done things for Lido, So I read up on you and I saw that you do those kind of things. But like we said, if there are collaborations where we can actually move these conversations to the regulatory bodies and also know if the people in the regulatory bodies are actually professionals who understand the industry, who know the challenges, then maybe there could be some form of changes, in all of that.
Yeah, of course. I think, there are rooms that we're not present in. There are rooms that we also don't make effort to be present in. It's quite, there are times that, either I get invited to speak in, especially when it comes to public sector engagement, you look around the room and you see that most of the people there, the people in the beauty industry are usually present, no matter where those things, they fly from different parts of Nigeria and go wherever this is happening. But our fashion people don't do that. I find that fashion people don't really like talking. The people that like talking, I'm not joking. You find that, if you look in the room, the people that are most active are not necessarily the people that they're not necessarily the people who are leading conversations, when it comes to fashion today, and you wonder why they're not in the room. When it's time to access funds as well, or funding, they're not the ones in the room, so it's going to takes us back to those two words I used at the beginning. We have to be deliberate and mindful about it. Yes, stakeholders meeting, town hall meetings, but who's invited and who is going. If you know that Lagos State Employment Trust Fund has opportunities for conversations like this, or British Council, or Nigeria Export Promotion Council, or Industrial Training Fund, or any of these people, attend those sessions. Let your voice be heard. Because if it's the people that go into those meetings, it's what they put forward that they're going to leave with as the general voice of the industry, So if you read the papers and they're asking, oh, we're inviting people to come to a stakeholders, and you don't respond, we cannot complain about what we get tomorrow, So it's about who's in the room at every point in time. If we're in this room now where we want to create a call to action at the end of this meeting, it's going to be based on the opinions of the people in this room. So who are the people? Those engagements happen, but who is in the room? Who is in the room? Are we present in those spaces? How do we ensure that we're present and and that's why advocacy is very, very important. We have to be present. There's got to be the right representation. It's sad that the fundamental issue or problem is we don't have one unified body that everyone identifies with or everyone once feels like, they belong to. If that was the case, then, part of the problem will be solved because there would always be representation, so it's fragmented. We're working in silos because, it's just.
No, yeah, no. Well, that leads me to the next question. So do we have some sort of associations or networks that people can even start from? I mean that can also help us in changing the narrative in the sector.
Yeah, so there's a Nigerian Textile Garment Manufacturers Association. They're quite strong. They try to rally textile and garment manufacturers. They try to, I'm not saying it's the ultimate solution, but at least, they're active. There's Fadan as well, that's been around for a while. I think some people feel like they can associate with it. Some people feel like they can't. So I'm not sure there's a perfect platform. I don't know of any other ones. There's the Association of Tailors as well. I think that's Mr. Yeah, so there are associations, but what is the mandate? What's the vision? Is everybody connected to it? Is there transparency? Those are all the wider questions or the wider things to consider.
Yeah. Collaboration is very key indeed, and that can move us forward from where we are today. So I have my next question is for the fashion enthusiasts who are listening, how can they make their brands go global?
I would say start by strengthening your brand locally. Start by, I think, start where you are. I think a brand that's going to go global has to have roots that's firmly entrenched within where they're placed locally. Create your. So once you have the brand, of course, you have to ensure that it's strengthened locally. Supply-wise, you need to know, because you cannot go global if you cannot control your manufacturing, your sourcing, if you cannot control, if you don't have access to funding to be, people think going global is easy. No, you need to have access to capital to be able to produce in quantities that as many stores as you're stocked in, can carry. And it's very capital intensive. So if you don't have a system in place where you figure that out, how do I want to fund this? How do I want to make sure I have constant access to, manufacturing in the quantities they want within the time that they want, then I'm not going to, that brand is not going to survive. So that goes back to the question, go back to what I was saying. Start by strengthening your base, be strong in your base, let people know who you are, where you are, and even it's possible that you have a brand and it's not meant for the Nigerian market. It's meant for, a different demographic beyond Nigeria. That's perfectly fine. But can you produce it in the quantity they want within the time they want? You know what I mean? Do you have access to capital to be able to do that, turn that around in quick succession? Do you have access to buyers, to a buyer network that you can, marketing and all of that, marketing, PR, your supply chain issues and so much more. So I think that's a whole workshop, a masterclass on its own, to be very honest.
I know, right? And that takes me to the next question. So what do you think are some of the threats? And I'm sure you've mentioned some of them, but why I'm asking is because a lot of people see that, you've been in the industry for a long time, or you're the CEO of Lagos Fashion Week and Style House Files. They just think that it's easy, you just got there. But I'll come back to that question because I was going to ask you, what are the challenges from your point of view? Tell us the challenges. I want people to be able to hear the failures. Beyond the successes, what are the failures? What are the rejections? What are the obstacles you faced for you to get to this point? Well, could you just quickly tell us some of the threats before you answer that question? Because I think it's very, very key for people to know. A lot of people just see the successes and they think it's just a walk in the park.
I think fundamentally, it's that's who we are as human beings. We all focus on the success, and we don't like to dwell on the negatives. Or for example, Lagos Fashion Week itself was launched in 2009, 2010. In fact, what am I saying? It was launched. The first proposal we sent out was end of 2007, start of 2008. But Lagos Fashion Week itself did not happen until 2011. Do you know how many no's that we got between that period? How many rejections, how many letters that, we have filed from a lot of the companies today that really, quote and unquote, carry fashion on their head? They were like, fashion is not on our radar. Fashion, fashion cannot, fashion is too elitist. Fashion is not like music. Bring a music proposal, we will support you. But fashion, I don't get it. How many people really buy Nigerian? No, the time hasn't come, and every time, even our first sponsor, MTN, every time we'll go in, it will be a no each year. Like, you go in twice, it had almost become a thing, like walk in, have the meeting, and they say, oh, you're back again. What's up? And Nigeria, sorry, Nigeria is so interesting. And you'll be there hoping that it would be a yes, and it was a no. But we never gave up. We kept going back to certain companies over and over again. And at some point in 2011, I think MTN, it wasn't even so much because they thought fashion, the people were going to be able to relate to fashion as a means of communicating their brand. They were just tired of seeing us. They're like, the question at the time was, oh, if we sponsor you, will you stop coming to us like every, it was really that funny, like, honestly. And I remember at the time it was really my husband Tokumbo, because he has a beard, and he'd gone to the meeting. I remember the CMO asked him, will you cut your beard if if we, it's funny now, but then it was like, I will, because it over and over and over again, just persistent, keep knocking on the doors. And that's why I tell people that you never know when it's going to be a yes. I received so many no's. I mean, like a few years ago as well, I think that one really hit me. We'd applied for a grant, and we made a global grant, and we made it to top 7. I mean, if you make it to top 7, you don't really think you're not going to be top 3. You think, and you use Christianese now, you use God, like, God, you did not bring me this far, then I will not, nothing will happen. But it happened. I mean, we were not top 3, and that's the reality, and that was painful. In fact, I think I put it on my LinkedIn. I had to share that because that was, in, I think that season, it was the biggest rejection. And for a while, I didn't know what to do, not necessarily because I needed it, because sometimes we don't know how to deal with rejection, and I find that especially as creative people, we probably don't know how to deal with it. It's a problem. But guess what? We went back to the drawing board, and the ideas that we pitched to them in that room that was not funded, there's some of the things we're doing today, and it's found expression in a completely different way. And I realized that if we'd gone ahead and received the grant at the time, it would have been an epic fail, because, there were some things we'd not workshopped. But workshopping it on our own and taking time to build, we realized that the approach that we were going to take then would not have been the way, so everything, I don't always see those things as a miss. I take it as, what lessons are we supposed to learn? And sometimes maybe there's no lesson to learn. Maybe you're just supposed to chill. So maybe the time hasn't come, but just stay true to yourself. Those things come, it happens to the best of us. When you walk out tomorrow, nobody knows that you just got a rejection or something. You reach out to sponsors, partners, institutions over and over again, and the answer is not no. I just believe in times and seasons, perfect timing. When the time comes, it does come.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think it's really key for people to hear that and pick the lessons from it. One last question before I start taking the questions in the chat box. Are there funding opportunities in this industry, and how can people tap into it?
We're talking to LSETF. Apply every time. Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, go and apply to get your loan. It's not a grant, so they don't dash money. So let me just prepare you. I think fundamentally people don't understand that there's a difference between a grant and a loan. A grant is free money, take it. And sometimes that exists, but most of the time it's a loan, meaning you have to either show them how you're going to pay back or have collateral, or, so at every point in time, you should have a business plan, at every point in time, your books must be in order, because you just never know. And another thing, challenge I find is a lot of people are discouraged from applying for these things. Apply. What's the worst thing that can happen? They will say no. You move on. But guess what? When you've gone through that process, it means you're prepared. It means, because a lot of times those conditions are so stringent that you even feel like, oh my gosh, am I even going to be able to get through this? But once you've gone through it, then it means you're, ready for investment, ready for, opportunities that can, make you credit worthy or make you attractive to a lender or a lending institution. So I always encourage people, just try, it helps you. It's rigorous, it's stressful, it's demanding. Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, you will get something from LASRA, you get also, they will make you apply and get some tax, but once you've done it, it makes you, you realize that the way you even approach your business will be completely different, So I encourage everyone to try it and give it a go.
Thank you so much, Omoyemi. We'll make you LSETF ambassador for studying our brand right now, yeah. But really, they're just processes that we have to go through because we really need to be accountable for, all the monies that we give out. And of course, we're spending taxpayers' money. So we need to justify why, you need to have your tax ID, your LASTRA, it's for Lagos residents, and all of that. Thank you very much, Omoyemi, for answering my questions. I will just check in the chat box and take a couple of questions. A lot of people are commending you here. Thank you very much. There's a question from Bridget from Ghana. She says, does Lagos Fashion Week admit only Nigerians? I'm a brand in Ghana. I would love to attend. Would you like to respond to that before I move on to the next question?
Lagos Fashion Week is open to any brand from Africa. If you go on our website, there's a box under designers, I think there's a criteria for showing. If you meet the criteria, please send an email to designers@lagosfashionweek.ng and they'll respond to you. However, I always like to mention that our biggest challenge when it comes to Lagos Fashion Week is the number of days. We only have a certain number of days. And sadly, because, fashion is not yet a morning till evening kind of showcase, people will not attend the shows if you don't, we look forward to it being a strictly industry event, but in terms of, because most of the brands are still D2C, direct to customers, their customers can only come at a particular time. So invariably means that the shows really happen late evening, early evening to late evening. So there are only a certain number of brands, only a certain number of brands that we can accommodate each year, but we're hoping that soon we can expand to more days. More days means more brands, and but please, by all means, go to the website, send an email, and if you meet the criteria.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that covers the question from Ajeronke that says, I would really like to be part of Lagos Fashion Week. What criteria do I have to meet? Ronke, I think that has been answered. A lot of people are interested. I want to be part of the Lagos Fashion Week. Okay. The next one from BBS AJ says, just like Ms. Omoyemi rightly said about everyone doing dressmaking, are there new trends and new aspects of the fashion industry that you find interesting or very exciting?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Okay, she says, just like Ms. Omoyemi rightly said about everyone doing dressmaking, are there new trends and new aspects of the fashion industry that you find very interesting or exciting?
Oh, yes. Let me see. I think for me, something that people haven't considered, if you like technology, for example, you can take a course online on how to be a pattern maker using any of these CAD/CAM systems or Tunkarimu, and right there from Lagos, you can be making patterns for people globally, earning pounds and dollars. But people don't think about that, and what skills do you really need? Largely, you just have to be tech savvy, know how to manipulate, if you're good with, especially if you already have graphic illustration skills, you already have, what's it called? Graphic illustration skills, you're good with numbers, you're good with drawing, in no time you can be accredited and be one of the pattern makers who responds to factories around the world. Yep. Gerber uses it, Tuka Tech uses it, this same type of technology. And it's something we're also thinking of doing, set up, anyways, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's one that I'm super interested about in now, exploring technology, investing in technology skills for employability that can help people, make an income locally. You can design, it can even be t-shirts where people come into a center, you just have the printing machine. It's anyways, another masterclass.
We got 2 master classes from you now. Tosi Lawson says, how do you find and retain the right staff to grow your business?
Oh, girl. I tell people, don't have a fixed mindset when it comes to retaining people to work with you. Be prepared to train and train and train. It is your business at the end of the day, so you can never get tired. So you have to constantly, and I say, when I'm saying this, I'm talking to myself as well, because I'm a creature of habit. I don't like change. So, and it's not possible because people evolve. People, people will want to do something else. They will ultimately leave. So yeah, new people will come. You have to invest in training them to be able to work with you, invest in them. And yeah, that's the solution, nothing else.
Okay. Thank you, Omoyemi. Just to chip in here, Omoyemi has been gracious enough to give some people the opportunity to work with her for the Lagos Fashion Week. And I think she'll be asking a few questions. So get ready to get yourself a spot, because I can see that a lot of people are showing interest in being part of the Lagos Fashion Week. So with this, you get the opportunity to work with Omoyemi. So we'll get to that in a bit. Let me just take more questions and then we can wrap this up. This says, Ngodo Emmanuel says, most of us are involved in just 1% of the industry. Can you highlight other sectors of the 99% apart from textile manufacturing and cotton manufacturing?
We just talked about one, pattern making using, CAD/CAM systems, which is super expensive, don't get me wrong, but, it's something that can be invested in, or you can be part of a network of people. So thinking about technology from thinking about working with tech, Web3 is huge, is currently big, how do you 3D designs, virtual reality, augmented reality, just think about technology in general and how you can use technology to augment what the 1% is doing, and so that you become the person they go to for all that. For example, taking photos using, the other day I realized that when designers want to take, like they call it taking, like ghost mannequins, like taking photos. Mm-hmm. So everyone else, there's software for doing it that can be so easy. There's machines, instead of, we do it in Nigeria, but it's more laborious. You shoot it on a particular type of mannequin, then the photographer starts to, oh gosh, we have suffered. Then I think the photographer has to edit the mannequin off it, so the garment now looks like it was shot. But there's technology for that. There's software. There are things that can just, make it so easy. So opportunities exist. I would even say start with technology and look for how, especially, people like us, I'm even still trying to figure out all the things my iPhone can do. So, and my laptop. But if you're good with tech, it's something you should really consider. Like, how can I use technology to support other creative businesses? And you'll be amazed. There's so many other things. What else? I keep going to fabric and I don't want, the things like buttons, zips, the zips, for example. I mean, I know a brand who says they had to design their brand in a way that wouldn't involve using zips, because most of the zips that's sold in the Nigerian market today, they're not great. I'm not sure we have any factory that produces zips in Nigeria. Can you imagine? Zips.
That's an opportunity. Please, you guys.
Zips, zips. I mean, I have to say buttons, zips, those are things that The 1%, you know, so you mean trimmings, you mean all these things you put on clothes, like who produces them? So everything is imported.
Wow.
You know, so those are they're just so much to think about, you know, so much, just yeah.
So many opportunities, so many opportunities. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of compliments, I mean, for you here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, while I look for other questions, maybe you want to throw in the question for
okay, so we're giving 3 people an opportunity to intern with us at Lagos Fashion Week. I have to tell you that we take our internships very, very seriously, because Lagos Fashion Week is currently, you know, our lead production team, you know, head of production, head of a lot of the things at Lagos Fashion Week now, they started off as interns, you know, so we take it's something that's serious, it's something that's important to us, you know. Exceptional people always end up working with us permanently. And yeah, we once we start working with people, it takes a while. People leave us, we don't leave people, pretty much. We don't we don't send people away. You know, is we're that chilled, you know, in that sense. So come and intern with us. You might discover yourself, you might discover an aspect of fashion that you know, you might not work directly with me, but so the question, I have 2 questions today. First one is, can anyone, the fastest fingers, does anyone know what front of house means within the context of a fashion week or a fashion show? Front of house and backstage. Can someone tell us the difference between the 2? Fastest fingers.
Okay, I'm trying to see in the chat box.
How do you see it? How do you see it?
Just click on the, okay, all right. Okay, I see a lot of, so Omoyemi has to tell us who got it right.
Okay, so I will pick where front row I sit. Runway and makeup room, front of house in charge of guests. Okay, so for front of house, we'll pick Grace BBS AJ and Oluwagbemiga. Grace Enang BBS AJ, Oluwagbemiga Soto. And backstage would be fastest fingers, Olufumilayo Ogundeko. Victory, your answer is directly experiences your brand and backstage is behind the scenes. Okay, Victory, I'll let Victory go. So it's fastest fingers, and one more person. And I think Omobolanle Adebo, perfect answer. Front of house is where the viewers are, backstage is where the changing room and models are. So Omobolanle, so do we have 6 now? So 3 front of house.
3, 4, 5 actually.
Oh, so one
we
more
have
person.
Grace, BBS, AJ, Oluwagbemiga. We have Olufumilayo Ogundeko, Victory, and Omobolanle Adebo. So that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So should we pick? I like the Titi Lopez answer. But Titi Lopez, I think there's also control room. Control room is front of house as well. I wish someone, you know, most of you actually control from front of house. That's where most of the technical work is done. Just okay, to go the wrong way. Makeup dressing. And should we pick Uche Lillian.
Uche Lillian. Okay. I guess that makes 6, right?
Yeah. So we do 3 front of house, 3 backstage. So.
Right. Thank you so much, Omoyemi. Congratulations to all the winners. Please ensure to drop your email addresses and your social media handle so we can reach out to you after this and let you know how you can be part of the Lagos Fashion Week. And please, can you all start thanking Omoyemi for this opportunity? It's a privilege.
Stop.
And you have to pay. You know how it is to get to places like this. And of course, it makes your dream come true. And of course, anytime you're telling your story, definitely Omoyemi will be part of it. And of course, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund for giving you this opportunity. Once again, I just want to say thank you, Omoyemi. But before I let you go, how do you relax? Because I'm wondering, like, you do all of this and you were a trained lawyer. How did you move into fashion? Could you just tell us that before we wrap up the show?
So relaxation for me is sleep. I like sleeping. When I'm not, I find that it's the easiest way for me to relax is that. I also like to, hang out with my family, spend some me time for myself. And then of course, us time, with my husband, my children, my siblings, I think that's very relaxing. And of course, my friends, it's, but I think it starts with you. You have to know how to take time out for yourself to connect with the deeper and the deeper and the inner you. And there are times that I know that there's so much clutter happening and I can't hear myself think. And when that happens, I know it's time to withdraw a little bit and go back into my shell and come back out again. So yeah.
Yeah. So I said to you, I mean, you're a trained lawyer. How did you?
So I sometimes I feel like this answer is everywhere, but don't worry, I'll repeat it. I think I'm a trained lawyer who enjoyed working in a law firm, and I have no regrets studying law and my degrees in law. However, I realized that at some point working in a law firm that success in life, what success means is a combination of factors. And I think we spoke about it at the start of this conversation, is about being purpose driven. You ask yourself, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And sometimes that could be a lifelong process, but it always starts with some answers. And when you do find those answers, it's good to walk in it. So I think I found my purpose, or I think I found my purpose at the time to be working within the fashion, textile, and apparel sector, to contribute to the work that's going on there in some way, shape, or form. And I felt it was a calling. I was called to do it. And not to make it sound so serious and spooky, but I find fulfillment in what I do because I feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing and I enjoy it. And so that's how the transition happened, because I realized that in life, life can be more. I'd seen people who you could tell really enjoyed what they did and what they do. And I could see the difference between me and them. And it was important that, for me to go down a path of purpose, find my purpose and walk in it. And that's how I switched from law to where I'm at today.
Thank you so much, Omoyemi. I think this is a good way to wrap up the conversation. We can't thank you enough. I've learned a lot from you, but what still keeps ringing in my head
99 and 1%.
Really?
No, it rings in my head every
99% is a huge opportunity for people. So I feel like everyone listening should please go and do your research. Look out for the 99% and start tapping into that opportunity, because it's the reason for this masterclass. We want people to start, get it into the sector, and of course build it to where we want it to be really. And then when you do that, you make people like Omoyemi know that they're doing so much in that industry. Once again, thank you very much for your time and for your wealth of knowledge that you've shared with us today. I would also reiterate that if you like to download the fashion business entry guide for the fashion industry, you can get it on our website, www.lsetf.ng. And of course, we want to thank Omoyemi for the opportunity to work with her for the Lagos Fashion Week. Please share your experience with us so when you get there, and then we would, of course, tell your stories on that.
Are you ready? Come ready. It's not easy.
Exactly. So it's not just for you to get the opportunity, but prepare yourself to do the work, So opportunities come once. Please take good use of it, and then make good use of it rather. And then of course you'd achieve your dreams in the fashion industry. I can't stop thanking you, Omoyemi, because I also learned to know.
Thank you so much. Thank you, LSETF, for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thanks for all that you do. All the best. And thank you everyone for listening to me, and thank you for the comments and all of that. And look forward to more opportunities to connect with you and to be able to. I also hope that you've met other people in the chat groups, because that's what all of these things are about.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Omoyemi. And that's the end of our masterclass for today. I see all your comments. So watch out for more masterclasses on our social media platforms. Follow us at LSETF. Follow us at LSETF on all our socials, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube for more information. I see questions on loans and stuff. We would address all of those. But everyone, thank you for staying through even till this point in time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.